Welcome to another episode of 90 Minutes of Wisdom, a channel dedicated to helping you expand your knowledge and develop a more successful and peaceful mind. Today's guest excels in physical, mental, and spiritual wellness. He is a care worker for the elderly, a personal trainer, involved with isagenix health supplements, owner and manager of multiple rental properties for vacation condos, a philanthropist, an all-around amazing human being. Welcome, Jeremy. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you. I'm
Nice.
happy to be here.
You're like the king of positive posts. You have so many amazing things, and I find it so helpful because no matter what level you are, everyone's vibrational vibrations go up and down during the day. So it's always nice to continuously remind yourself of these positive things, and we all need it. Some more than others, and sometimes it really certain times of the day it's really important. So I always really appreciate that. So you want to tell me a little bit about like what inspires you and how how important that is, those posts to you?
Yeah, I also work for isagenix. So with isagenix, it's about getting yourself out there. So I try to be 100% authentic. To be honest, most people will say that I'm always positive, and all of my clients absolutely love me, and I go in with good energy. No matter what's going on in my life, I always try to be. They say when Jesus entered a village, as soon as he entered the village, the vibration, that energy would rise. Or Mother Teresa. So I aspire to kind of be just the best version of me. So everybody does say that. Everybody kind of says you're always positive, you're always upbeat. And do I have problems? Absolutely. I do have problems like everybody else, but I just try to be always positive no matter what.
Yeah, so that's an amazing point. Yeah, to be positive and to bring up the vibrations of other people, like you're saying, when you walk into a room, it's amazing. And I've experienced that on actually the last podcast that I released was with Chintan, and I was saying that when I met Chintan, it was like he's an enlightened. I don't like to use the term to him because he's so humble, but he's an enlightened master, right? So the minute I got in the room, I was like, oh my god, I was just like struck, and I couldn't believe that other people didn't have that same like realization. It was like walking into a church or a synagogue or a mosque or somewhere where there's a lot of deep spiritual activity. It's amazing how one person can walk into a room or a party and bring up everything or drop everything down.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key is, I think they say misery likes company. The more people kind of come into a room and maybe gossip or start complaining, the complainers are always going to be attracted to more complainers, right? And they're always trying to one up themselves. Oh, well, you said this. Well, what happened to me? And then it goes into a negative spiraling effect, right?
I completely agree. It always reminds me when somebody gets out of like AA or out of jail, and they're like, don't associate with those people, right? And I think that's such a key. And you don't hopefully have to, some person doesn't have to have that experience, horrible experience, to have to get to that point of going to jail or having to go to AA to kind of realize that, right? That realization that is the people that are around you. There's that famous quote, you probably know, the five people around you, right? Tell me who the five people are around you. Firm believer of that. Another quote was from Tony Robbins, and this guy walks up to Tony Robbins and says, Tony, every year I make $1 million. I've sold businesses, I've bought businesses, I've done everything, but every year I make $1 million. I'm not complaining, but I can never make 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. And Tony Robbins looks at him and he just says, how much money do your friends make? And he says, about 1 million. And Tony Robbins looks at him and says, my friends make 10 million, and walks away. That's just the classic,
Absolutely, right. And that's the exact point, right? So if you hang out with people, unfortunately, and it's kind of hard because you can't choose sometimes your family. Your family is a tough one, right? Because you are your five best friends. You know what I mean? So you're, a combination, right? So you got to put it out there. You got to, kind of ask the universe to, bring better, kind of more positive people into your life.
Absolutely. And that's like, I did a short video, one of my 90-second videos on pets versus ants. So positive, empowering thoughts versus automatic negative thoughts. So it's basically, the minute you stop, and that's why thank you again for all your work with all your posts, because it's so important. Because if you do not kind of guide your mind, it seems like the natural default is automatic negative thoughts. They just
Yeah.
start coming in. The worrying, oh, I'm like, will I be able to do this? Oh my God, I have this project. Oh, I didn't respond to that email. And then just all these things. It's like, it's weird that our mind the default is flawed, if you will, or is a survival instinct that's no longer necessary. I don't know how you see it.
Yeah. I believe it's all part of group consciousness, right? We're all part of that one big group consciousness, and unfortunately, we see the world in the way we see it right now, right? So unfortunately, there's a lot of negativity, a lot of fear, a lot of anger in the world. So I was just listening to something else, and it was kind of saying, those bad thoughts are kind of coming from the world consciousness, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of practice, and it's just about when that negative thought comes through into your mind, to recognize it, to immediately see it and say, that's not me, that's not me, and change it to a positive thought. And the big key for me was just learning to be present in the moment. That's the key to life. If you're present in the moment, you can't have problems, right? There's no problems right here, right now. So when you're anxious, as Lao Tzu says, when you're anxious, right, then you're worried about the future, right? And if you're depressed, you're worried about the past. So that's the key, right? So if you stay in the moment at all times, yeah, it's good to have plans and it's good to have goals. I have those as well. But you know what? At every moment, and when I catch myself thinking about, oh, I got to do that, and I got to do that, and I got to do that, and then that's when that anxiety starts. The anxiety starts because you're like, okay, well, I got, and I forget to do this, and don't forget to do that. But if you stay present in the moment and just keep working on it, then I think that's how you get yourself better. And those thoughts don't come in for me anymore. I don't really have a lot of negative thoughts anymore. I do. I'm working on it, and it takes a lot of practice. It just takes a lot of practice, and a lot of, I think, meditation really helps.
Yeah, well, for sure. I don't want to talk about meditation in a moment, but what you said is I just want to address that point, which is very powerful, and that's like Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about that. What fires together wires together. So you're actually physically rewiring your brain to a positive brain, to positive
Yeah.
thoughts, which is absolutely amazing. And again, the reverse, like we were talking about a moment ago, is complaining develops more those paths, more complaining paths, looking for more things. And combination of that with, and I talk often about this because it's a reminder to myself, is the filter. So we can only perceive 20% of reality and 80% we don't see. So if your filter is positive, you start seeing the positive things. And if your filter is negative, you start looking for those things. What else can I complain about? What else
Yeah.
can make me angry? And then the third point on that is the difference between telling your mind, I want this, or I have this, right? So you put your mind in a state of wanting. So like a classic one is with money. A lot of people say, "Oh, I want $1 million." Okay, I want. Okay, so you want. So what are you telling your mind? You're telling your mind, you're putting yourself in a state of wanting. So your mind says, "Okay, I better keep him or her wanting to have $1 million instead of having $1 million." You can say that
That's right.
about
That's right.
happiness or about health as well, right?
Yes. Yes.
I am, like, and you said it again so well about, I am happy now. I'm peaceful now, and being mindful of the present moment. It's not some point in the future. And then it becomes also this constant struggle, as you said, of past, present, and future. You're not your past thoughts, and you're not, your memories. And yeah, so very, very interesting. If you want
Yeah,
to.
and I think the big thing that I really worked on a lot was so if you know the Bible, it's Moses is in the burning bush, and God is that burning bush, and Moses comes up, and God says, you need to take off your shoes, and he said to Moses, I want you to go and free the children of Israel, and Moses said, well, who do I say is who do I tell them who wants them to come out? And he says, you tell them I am that I am. And I am is the two most powerful words that anybody can ever say. So that's the key. The key is I am strong, I am healthy, I am wealthy. Those positive affirmations, right? Those are what's key. And that's when I get into a negative, like some kind of negative thought or a couple of negative thoughts, that's when I go back to my affirmations and I say them, and I say them with power.
Hmm. Like, do you have a go-to affirmations, like a top three, a top five that you're like, or you have like a list of like 20?
Well, mine's the same every day. I am strong. I am healthy. I am wealthy. I am a millionaire. I am loving. I am kind. I am generous. I am giving. I am caring. I am grateful. I am blessed and highly favored through Christ who strengthens me. And I say that in the morning, in the shower, every single morning, and I say it with feeling.
Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about that adding the emotion it causes the chemical
Yes.
reaction.
Yes.
So you can say, and I often come back to the same thing: is it fear based or is it love based decision? Right, where you're coming from, and then to say, if you say, oh, I might go for a walk. Say, okay, fine. And you say, you know what, man, I'm going for a walk. It's going to be amazing, right? You're going to go do it. Emotion causes motion,
Yes. Yes. Yeah,
right?
and Tony Robbins also says like it's physiology. So if you ever I've been to a Tony Robbins event, and he gets you to move. Like you're up in your seats, and he gets you to move, and that's the thing, right? So he even says like when you're slumped over and you're answering like this, and your head is down, you know what I mean? Then it's you're not projecting strength, right? When you talk to people and you're standing upright and you're looking them in the eye, you know what I mean? Get the body moving, the physiology, and that's when the universe takes that.
Well said. Yes, I have been to Tony Robbins event many years ago. He did 4.5 hours straight, and he was like, and he came late because of beautiful classic Montreal traffic, which he was ill prepared for. It was an amazing event. Nurika was there, and she, I don't know if you know her, she's amazing, amazing, amazing. Anyways, so he came and he's like, listen, I know you're all tired and you've been here since, started at like 9 in the morning, right? And he shows up at 4 p.m. and goes till 8:30 p.m., right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so every like 20 or 30 minutes, he'd blast the music. He'd be like,
yeah,
get up, start jumping, and stuff like that. And it's amazing because it's the opposite of what I always thought. I always thought that if I feel tired, I need to rest, like I need to go down.
yeah.
And it's actually, well, you know this well from being a personal trainer. You go into the gym and you feel a certain way and a little bit tired. You come out, you're like pumped, you feel great, you have more energy than you came in with.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, and that's the key, right? Body in motion stays in motion. You know what I mean? And body at rest stays at rest. And that's the key, right? So you always got to be. I mean, that's why working out is so important, and just staying active, right?
I would go to the gym every day, and just for that reason, because when I felt good, I wanted to go. When I felt bad, I knew I'd feel better.
That's
So
right.
it
That's
was
right.
a non-negotiable. Snowstorms, everything, I would go.
Yeah,
Non-negotiable. And
that's
then I often think of that too, is that like I treat myself as a video game character. So I make myself do things. They say that when you feel, most people, when they feel like they're completely done and burnt out, they still have, what is it, 40% more
yeah.
in
That's
in
right.
the tank, right?
That's right. If you're trying for a goal, or you're trying for some sort of competition or anything like that, you got to remember there's always people working harder than you. So that's what I keep in my mind, right? When I go, I did an ice body competition it took me a while, but I eventually was an honorable mention for Canada in the first Canadian Isabody. So they had Isabody in the United States, and now they have it all over the world. So basically, they choose the top 20 out of 10,000 people, and I was in the top 20. So
Congrats, man. That's
yeah,
amazing. Wow.
yeah.
Wow. You know what? And then on that subject, do you want to speak about, just for the listener that may not know and be familiar with isogenics? Could you want to just talk about that a bit?
Yeah, Isagenix is a whole bunch of products now. Basically, they started off with just shakes and a cleanse package, which basically is intermittent fasting. Now, intermittent fasting is has gotten a lot of popularity lately. A lot of stars do intermittent fasting. So basically, what that means is you're fasting your body. You can have water, tea, or coffee for a certain number of hours, and you can even start off with the common one that I tell people just to make it easy is eat dinner at 5 p.m. And then see if you can fast till 12 o'clock the next day. You know what I mean? Terry Crews actually does that one. He eats at around 5, and then he doesn't eat his next meal till 12. So basically, 5 to 5, that's 12 hours, right? And then another 5, that's basically 17 hours of fasting, and now you're only eating for 7 hours.
Yeah, exactly. I do it myself to keep my. I'm not always even close to your fitness level, but I keep my weight exactly the way I want it. So I was weighing 180 for a while, and I thought at 6 feet tall, I guess and it seemed like simple math. So like it seemed like for 6 feet tall, I should have 30 pounds per foot or something. I don't know. I made some arbitrary mathematics in my head that 180 would be fine. And then I read, no, you know what, 165 is
Mm.
actually ideal. So I just dropped to that, and I do intermittent fasting every day. I do a cup of coffee, and then I eat whenever I eat, but I've trained my body that it never panics anymore. And that's, I
That's
think,
great.
the
That's
key
great.
to it. It knows it's going to get fed. So sometimes I've gone from the morning a cup of coffee and eating my first meal at 4 or 5 p.m. And so I'm fine with it. I'm not like
Good.
dizzy or anything. My body knows, and I can tell it, okay, it's going to be fine. This is what we're going to eat later. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
it's cool. But it's that
Yeah.
relationship.
That's right, and it's a mindset, right? And I always because with Isagenix, you kind of help others, and that's how it all works. It's a network marketing business, right? So I coach others. So basically, after they see my posts on Facebook, my story, and then I post other stories of transformations and things, and people reach out to me and they say, listen, I see what you're doing. You've obviously had great results. And then they reach out, and I don't feel, I'm not an aggressive salesperson, and I don't, I've actually been at that point where other people are messaging me constantly. And I think that's where network marketing kind of gets sometimes a little bit of a bad name is people, there are some people that do it wrong and are extremely aggressive and sending messages, and that's I want to help people for sure, but I want them to come to me, and I will send them some information about it, but at the end of the day, it's kind of another side gig.
As I see your posts and I see Tuesday transformations, and I'm blown away. I see these before and after pics, and normally those are the type of pics I would see on a TV commercial, and I'd just be like, you know what, no way. But I know you, and I know that they're real, and they're like they're mind blowing. They're mind blowing, and absolutely amazing. So just before we get on that subject, how would people contact you?
They can message me through Facebook Messenger is the best way. Add me on Facebook, Jeremy Hemming. I'm probably in 15 or 20 different groups through Isagenix. So it's all inspiring people, and that's what I really love about it. It's a community. It's a lot of people who are trying to keep themselves healthy, trying to help others get healthy. So I feel like there's a really, really good energy, and I've met a lot of amazing people. I went to Las Vegas. I've been obviously throughout Canada to different events, and like the Tony Robbins event, any event really is amazing, right? Because you're getting in there, you're all, it's a group energy, and you're going to come out with at least one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you out of my own curiosity, when I see these amazing transformations, the before and after, how much is that due to the Isagenix products and diet and fasting, and how much is that to do with gym and exercise?
Well, this is the really, really 100% truth, and I can vouch for this. Before I started Isagenix, um, I thought I ate healthy. I worked out pretty much every day, and I was never at that level where I am now. I was just never there. And you know what? I got up in the morning, and I'd put, you know, spinach and kale and banana, and I would, the shakes, and I was doing all that and working out, and I was always eating too much. And that's what, remember, you were going back and you said, you don't need to be 180, you need to be 165. And realistically, our bodies do not need as much as people are eating, and unfortunately, we've seen it. The United States is at like 44% obesity right now. You know what I mean? And Canada is not too far behind. And I can only imagine what the statistics are going to be after this, this major pandemic where everybody's sitting at home doing nothing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I agree completely. And I think there's a fault of or preying on the weakness of a lot of people where they have these super size me, where in the movie theaters, when we were kids, it was like the small was small, and then the medium, and then over time the medium became the small, and then the large became the small, and then
Yeah.
they just got larger and larger. They're like
Right.
who needs to drink 2 liters of Pepsi during a movie? I mean, it's
Yeah.
madness. It's just
No, and
madness.
yeah, and going back to your question there, with how much is diet and how much, and I can honestly say that it's 80% diet and only 20% exercise.
Yeah,
So
you know what, and I completely agree. I've read the statistic,
yeah,
and I've seen things as saying as little as 15%
yeah,
is actually the gym. Everyone thinks, oh, this guy's getting ripped, and this girl is losing all this weight, and she has this amazing swimsuit body because of the gym. And they're like, no. I think that what happens is that when you start going to the gym, you start getting much more health conscious and diet conscious.
yeah.
And that kind of leads into it. And I was shocked when I saw that, because I always thought it was the opposite. I always thought it was
Me
like,
too. Me too. Absolutely.
yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with like Vishen from Mind Valley and his transformation. And he's like a firm believer now in like doing like 15 to 20 minutes of exercise like a day. And he's like, that's it. And the rest is like diet. And he showed the results, and he got like super fit. Just eating correctly, intermittent fasting, doing those type of things. And the exercise, yeah, you want to boost your metabolism, you want to do certain things,
Absolutely.
but was able to get stronger faster by doing these his way of short power workouts, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, and I totally agree with that. I totally 100%. And they say abs are made in the kitchen, and that's the bottom line, and that's the truth. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I think kind of our generation, we were growing up to people like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know what I mean? And these are the kind of guys that were pounding down like 12 eggs, in a shake, 12 egg whites. You know what I mean? Or 12 real eggs, full eggs in a shake. And you kind of thought, what, oh well, oh, okay, I need all this protein, I need the steaks, and I don't know if you saw that new Netflix movie.
I did.
Yeah,
I could read your
yeah,
mind. I did. And
yeah,
now Arnold Schwarzenegger is like an advocate for
yeah.
right for being vegan,
Vegan, absolutely.
right? And it's like we got lied to and perpetuated again through the media, saying that a real man eats a steak.
That's
You
right.
know,
I never ever watch commercials. It's because they're trying to get into your subconscious mind, and that's the fact. The more times you see McDonald's, and they do it for the kids, they specifically get the kids. The more times the kids see McDonald's, the greater chance that they want to go and eat McDonald's. You know what I mean?
absolutely. But what the interesting thing, Game Changers was on
Game
Netflix for
changer. Yeah,
anyone that wants
great
to watch it.
movie. Great movie.
Absolutely. But one of the most interesting things is when they talked about, and I'm trying to put this in the most polite way, but they talked about male stamina in the bedroom. And actually, they tested it. So if you vegan, your male stamina is through the roof compared to if you go out on a date and have a big steak. You're sabotaging your basically your blood flow.
That's right. Oh, absolutely right. And 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 I was so surprised. That movie just it blew me away. And I mean, not that I am vegan, but I don't eat a lot of actually red meat. I prefer eating a lot of fish and a lot of chicken. But yeah, it was interesting. And but I could see it. Obviously, I have a degree in exercise science, and I've studied the physiology of it. But I mean, in essence, absolutely right. The more fat you eat, your arteries are going to get clogged up, clogged up, clogged up, right? And everything obviously works the blood, through the blood flow, right?
Exactly. And the other very interesting thing from that was that the same like Mad Men marketing giants that used to promote tobacco could no longer promote tobacco products, so they were hired by the meat industry to promote meat. And
Yeah,
it's amazing.
yeah,
It's so deep. Sometimes you think, oh, like with YouTube and stuff, you're like, oh, there's so much conspiracies, but there are some real conspiracies. The
absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, we're gonna see it. We're gonna see more and more, unfortunately, evolve as we run through the world that we're in, and the pandemic. And I mean, it's so hard to trust anything anymore. And I feel like we're all in that same boat, and we're watching the news, and we see, one person saying one thing, and it's kind of, and then we see doctors saying that, oh, this pandemic is a hoax. And then other doctors are obviously freaking out and in desperation, you know what I mean? And I mean, I work in healthcare, and honestly, my biggest concern and my biggest, what I feel for is the doctors that do have to go through this, and the nurses. I read a statistic just recently: over 400 nurses have died from COVID. And these are people trying to help people. For me personally, the pandemic is not a hoax. This is definitely killing people. I saw that Brazil just the other day had 54,000 new cases, and they have no medical system, right? So this is it's a serious thing. I don't know. A lot of people still don't take it very seriously, but unfortunately, they're not thinking of their grandparents and their parents, and people who are immune compromised. I mean, let's face it. Yeah, you and I will be totally fine, and chances are we won't even see symptoms. But you know what I care about is I see 12 elderly people every single day. I would not want to pick it up and then go and spread it, because that would just it would just kill me. You know what I mean?
Yes, it is very serious. People should take it seriously. Number one, history repeats itself with the Spanish flu, the second wave. Learn. If you're doomed to repeat it. If you don't learn from history,
That's
you're
right.
doomed to repeat it.
That's right.
Let's not cure the symptoms. Let's cure the root of the infection, of the disease, or whatever it might be. And when I look at it, I say, well, what is, to me, the root of the problem? And I think the root of the problem is abusing the environment, is lack of respect for Mother Nature, for Mother Earth, for the Gaia theory. And when I look at it, I say, and this might be unpopular to some people, the humans right now, we're acting, we don't have to, we can live symbiotically, but we're acting like a disease on the earth. When we have this unfortunate COVID, well, I don't think it would be there if we were living with the land and not destroying it and paving roads and polluting nonstop. Because when everyone went inside, and then you could see, from New Delhi, you could see the Himalayas, you could see the animals coming back, you could see the
Right.
smog from this space center around the earth, and like China, and the smog going away and stuff like that. I'm like that's, I think, the lesson here. I mean, we're still in it, but the lesson is needs to be addressed. Let's start treating the environment better.
Absolutely. And I 100% agree with you. And I think it has to definitely do with our environment and how we're destroying it very, very rapidly. But I also think it's, as we've talked about, is it's about energy. If you look at what happened right before we went into COVID, I mean, Donald Trump bombed somebody, I remember watching the news, and it was 100,000 people who were very, very, very upset, very angry. And of course, it was Donald Trump, who had was on the golf course, and of course he pulled the trigger. And if you look at that, right, they're angry. Then they shot down a plane,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So then that killed 100 Canadians, and I think 50 Americans. So now anger, we're losing a lot of people unnecessarily, right?
Yeah.
Right. So energy, we're in anger, then we're in fear, because I mean, the way that the world is going right now, I mean, Donald Trump, Kim Jong Un, any of these guys could pull a trigger, and some serious, serious consequences. And I think the more fear that we have, and we've talked about this, we can either be in love, or we can be in fear. But right now, the world is in a lot more fear. You know what I mean? And that's why we're going through what we go through.
I get it. And then, yeah. And if you look at it, I completely agree. Energetically, right? You look at the universal consciousness. So each person, you think, okay, like think of it for the listener as like the internet, like everyone's plugged in, right? Or the Matrix, if you like that movie. I love that movie. If you like that movie, right? So it's kind of like we're all plugged in to this thing. So individual, and let's take a one more butterfly effect, right? So an individual being blown up in another country, like, oh, it doesn't. I don't live there. It doesn't affect you. Yes, it does. It does affect you. It affects
Absolutely.
everyone, you know? Cutting down that tree in that remote forest that you'll never be to, it does affect you. Polluting that environment, especially because of the winds and the way the world's getting smaller. And this is another wake up with COVID. Oh, it's over there. Is it? No, it's here. It's in your backyard. It's down the street. It's your friends, it's your family. They don't people need to wake up to that. And energetically, that's why it's so important to not be part of that fear. And that's a very difficult line sometimes to walk. Okay, to say, like, you know what, you should take it seriously. You should protect yourself. You should protect your family. Protect others. Do not spread it. But also at the same time, don't spread the fear of it. Right? Don't be
Yes.
consumed with fear.
That's what the news does. That's what the news does. Actually, it was funny because Jim Carrey, I posted it the other day, but Jim Carrey, that little post said, let's take away the news for a month and let's see where the world is. You know what I mean? And that's the problem with the news.
There's that quote, a great quote. I'm sure you know it, by Denzel Washington, right? If you don't watch the news, you're uninformed. If you watch the news, you're misinformed.
Yes.
The
Yes.
greatest quote. It's
Yeah.
just like that sums it up. So what do? Democracy is run by media, right? Like that's how you control the people. You control them with media, or you control them through a dictatorship with guns and force. But through television, even the news. You know what? I'm so tired. Is everything, whether it's a commercial for Ford or for Wendy's, like every single commercial is about COVID. Everything. There's
Yeah.
not one, oh, we're all in this together and this and that, great. They're like, but it's also, it seems disingenuous, a lot of it, you're marketing through that, you
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
I know what a lot of these companies do behind, and pay those carbon taxes so they can continue to pollute, you know. So don't say this,
Yeah,
oh,
I totally agree with you. It's a wake up call that things do need to change. You know what I mean? Like obviously, the universe is telling us certain things. Number one is pollution. That's for sure. We need to like step up. Big time. And unfortunately, like people like Donald Trump, right? He promotes the coal industry. You know what I mean? And actually, he put extra tariffs on solar paneling that were coming from China. This was way before the pandemic. So he doesn't want to get into, you know what I mean? And then that's where I think a lot of his voters are, because oil and gas is a humongous billions and billions of dollars, right? So, it's about the money. That's the problem with it. So number one is pollution. Number two, universe is trying to tell us that the care homes all over the world need some work, and
Mm. You know
they
what?
need
This is, I'm gonna interrupt you right there. That's
yeah,
perfect. I just on that point with the care, it is only in um, majority in North America that it's normal that when your parents hit a certain age, you just jam them in a home, right?
mhm,
In other cultures, like like I'm half Indian, so in Indian culture, it's like they live with you, the grandparents live with you, and in many other Eastern cultures, we're the only ones that's acceptable. Oh, like mom hit a certain age, okay, like just jam her in a home until she's dead. It's really weird.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
It is really weird. I feel the exact same way, and it's sad because I do see elderly people every day, and obviously I get to know them and ask their children, and so many kids are just all over Canada, all over the United States, and I understand everybody's got to have a life, but when I moved to Kelowna, I was in Montreal for 8 years. I grew up in Ontario, but when I moved to the West Coast here, basically the first thing I did was I called my mom and my two brothers who were still in Ontario and Quebec, and I said, "Listen, this is the place to be," and I got every single one of them to move out this way.
super nice of you. And it's looking at those things. There was a video I did not too long ago, and you probably saw, talking about like at the end of people's life. I always find it super interesting, right? What are the questions, right? At the end of your life. So like, what do you say? Like, nobody ever says, I want to drive that Ferrari one more time. I want to drink that bottle of wine. They always say the same things, but we don't live by that, right?
That
We don't.
I guess the number one regret was not being, um, not living up to what God wanted me to be. Travel for me is a major part. I want to see the world. I worked on the cruise ships on and off for 5 years, so I always had that travel bug, and I really believe that it opens your eyes to a whole new world, and you just become more grateful for what you have. When you go to third world countries and you see real poverty, and it's one thing to see, what I mean, on the news, and we see it all the time on the news or on a TV show, but to actually go there and to see what real poverty is. We're in the 80 percentile. If you live in North America, you're in the 80th percentile, right? I mean, 50% of the world are living, basically with no food, so that's where I think a big part of it for me is just being grateful for everything. I think that's humongous. That's another key to life.
Yes, you said it very well. I've been to India several times, and I've seen, and one of the most surprising things I've seen was, I'll never forget it, was at the side of the road, there's these people that live, and they don't even have homes. They just have a clothesline and they have a pot, and there's like families in a row. And there's this wall, and they're allowed to live there because on the other side of the wall is the beach, and because India, the dead fish wash up on the beach, and it smells awful, right? So nobody wants that that real estate, right? So they all live there, and of course they go, like the TV commercials say, nose blind, so they don't really realize it after a while. But I remember looking, so I'm driving by there, and we stop at the light, at the traffic light, and look over at the little girl, and she looks at me, and she's big smile,
Yeah.
big smile. And one of the things that I find very difficult, having traveled several times, to saying many different places, but especially to India, is how spoiled North American children are, and it upsets me.
It's a sense of entitlement. Not all millennials, because I know there are some hardworking, go-getter millennials, but millennial generation in general is, to me, from what I see, entitlement, spoiled, and unfortunately, and I got to go back to partially blaming the parents, because the parents are telling them you can do this and you can do that, and you can be anything you want to be, which is absolutely right. But the key factor is the hard work. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to do anything in life unless you work hard. I mean, I remember I was delivering papers at 9, and from there on, I had a job. I started at Zellers, at 15. I lied on my application, and I got the job at 15. Because we weren't allowed to start work back then till 16. And ever since then, I was always working at least one job. And obviously now I think I have 4 or 5 jobs. So
Too extreme is Robert Kiyosaki. He's kind of like, he's a little extreme, but he's right on a
yeah,
lot of points. He's like, the most risky thing you can do is go to school, get get a degree, work for one company with one job, with one income, and if your boss, and this is very unfortunate, people are realizing this in droves in the United States right now, it says you're fired. What do you do?
yeah,
You got
yeah.
nothing.
And that's what life is also about, right? It's about getting out of your comfort zone. And right now, look at the universe or God, whatever you want to call it. Look at what it's God is making every single human being to get out of their comfort zone. That's the bottom line, right? And life is really about getting out of your. I think the more that you take a little bit more risk, the more good things are coming. I really do.
Yeah. One of the quotes is that God says, when you're alone, it's because I want to spend time with you, just with you and I. And it's like
Amen.
it's a
Amen.
beautiful thought, right? It's a beautiful
Absolutely.
thought. So I think
Absolutely.
that, and then when we saw this isolation and lockdown and how certain people reacted to it, a lot of people went and they just bought guns and alcohol, and they said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to drink like crazy. And it's like, and then other people, and I don't know, I have no idea the percentages of people and stuff like that. I just know from the, what I see on TV, and who knows how much of that is real. But how many of those people got a chance to go inside? And then to tie into your point earlier and about family and health, and mental health, that we've had so many people that would be like complaining, oh, I never get to see my family because I'm always working and I'm always tired. And then they get this time and they're like, oh my God, it's horrible. Like my wife is home all day, and my kids, and
Yeah.
they're driving me crazy. And it's like, it's Jerry Seinfeld had this joke, and he says, and the punchline, I'll say the punchline first. I'm no comedian, so I wouldn't be able to deliver it well. Anyways, he says that nobody's ever happy where they are. Okay. And so like, they're always like, okay, where are you going? Okay, I'm going on a trip. So he says, okay, we're going to the airport. So we got to get into the Uber or the taxi or whatever to get to the airport. So let's go. So we get to the airport. When's the flight taking off? When's the flight taking off? Okay, it's taking off then. We're waiting to get onto the flight. And once you get on the flight, like, when are we going to land? I'm going to get off
Yeah.
this plane, right? Then we get off the plane, and then we're like, okay, like, how we get to the hotel? Right? Let's get to the hotel. And then we
Yeah.
get to the hotel, be like, well, we got to go, like, we got to go to like a restaurant or sightseeing. So it's like you're never happy where you are. You just want to be somewhere else. And that's again, like what you said, not
Yeah.
living it, not being mindful, not living in the now, and chasing this thing that's
Yeah.
unfulfilling.
Yeah. And that is a big point in life again. And I used to be the same, and I had to work on it a lot. I will be happy when. That is probably the worst thing, you know what I mean, that you can say. And Abraham, Esther Hicks, which I'm sure you're familiar with, you got to be happy now, but always striving to be better. And that's the key, right? So no matter what you have now, you know what I mean, you got to be happy. Because if you project happiness, if you project positivity, God will send you more stuff that's going to come your way, through God, to be happy. That's why I really truly believe that. But we have to ask. That's the first step in the law of attraction. Okay, so the law of attraction, first step is we ask. And the biggest problem with you're asking, which is okay, but the problem is you're more thinking about the lack of something. So say if you're asking for $1 million, but your vibration is saying, I don't have $1 million. So you're focused on, I don't have $1 million, or I don't have a car. You know what I mean? So that's the key. It's about wanting things, but then not, concentrating on that and not the lack of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think the quality of your life is determined largely in part by the quality of the questions that you ask yourself.
Yes.
And it's absolutely huge. And that's why I wrote a book on words, because I realized how much words can sabotage you, or asking in the wrong way, or as you said, you're focused on the lack of instead of the
Lack
thing.
of. That's right. Exactly. Focus.
And as you said, are you a vibrational match? If you're a vibrational match to $1 billion, I don't care where you are, you will get that $1 billion. Because what Einstein says, it is not spiritual practice; it's a law of physics. if it's a vibrational match, it must
That's
come
right.
together.
That's right. That's
So
right. I agree 100%.
yeah, so work, like the work to be done. That's why one thing I really like about your posts and you as a person is you understand that thing through meditations that raise your vibrational level. You do so many good things by doing this, by just being in a state of gratitude and raising your own vibrational level through meditation, through gratitude, through helping people. Now, by doing so, because we're all connected, you're actually raising the universal consciousness,
That's right.
right? So if
That's right.
each and every person would only just work on themselves, don't forget about everybody else.
Yeah.
Just work on themselves, we'd be in an amazing position, right?
That's
We'd
right.
be
That's
in
right.
a fantastic position. And then if you want this thing in your life, you have to work on being a vibrational match. But that is such foreign language to so many people. They're like, "What are you talking?"
Yeah. Unfortunately, it is difficult sometimes. People just really need to realize that everything that you do to one person is you're doing to everybody, and we are group consciousness, and we are one through universe or God. So it's really difficult, and that's why it's so hard to see what's going on in the world. But they say, what is the quote there? It says, if you want to change the world, change yourself first, right? So then, like you said, you got to work on yourself, right? You got to keep working on yourself. If you want to help others, work on yourself first. And it's not about, being selfish. It has nothing to do with being selfish. And, do the work for yourself before you can go out and help other people.
It's not your karma, your destiny to change the world. It's not, or to be responsible for everybody else. It's not, but it is your responsibility for yourself, right? You're given the you, so work on you, right? That's like such a I don't know, obvious thing. But then it's also how you treat others and how you act to others is again vibrations. If you're mean to somebody or jealous or greedy or angry, you're vibrating at that. So you're attracting that, right? So, and I also find it so interesting on the vibrational scale, power versus force. I bring this up often because I think is the most important chart since Maslow's pyramid, right? Of having that thing. So now at the bottom is shame and guilt, right? But the thing is, to feel shame and guilt, it's you judging yourself. So if you go and you do something that makes you feel shame or guilt, then you're in that vibration. That vibration is very low and very bad for you because you're attracting all just the worst things into your life.
That kind of ties into narcissism, right?
Mhm.
Narcissists, they tell themselves the lie over and over and over and over again, and then it becomes the truth,
Mhm.
right? But there's a good way to do it too, right? That's where those often affirmations come in, right? That's where going to bed and saying I am healthy, regardless if you have cancer or whatever. If you keep telling yourself over and over, and then you start to believe it, and then
Yeah.
you start to, and that's where that you raise that vibration again.
Yeah. There's I always think of Seinfeld episode with George Costanza when he says, "It's not a lie if you believe it." That's always sticks with me with that.
Yeah.
We
And
can use Carillion photography to take a photograph of our aura, okay, of our energetic body. So
mhm,
so we're a human flesh body. Inside, we're actually, people always say, "Oh, we're spirit inside a body." It's the opposite, right? We're a body inside a spirit, and this is like again provable and scientific. So then you think, well, what's happening? Like the chicken and the egg? Is our illusion of life the real thing, or is the thoughts in that world real, and this is just a projection of that? Now I am a firm believer is that this is an illusion and a projection of the inner world, right?
mhm.
So if you change that inner world and through meditation, through affirmations, through the right questions, through those type of things, then you'll see the manifestation of those inner world on the outer world.
I
And
agree.
yeah, and I wanted to ask you, Elon Musk was talking about how he's a firm believer that the whole world is a simulation, that we're a simulation. And I wanted to see if you had any thoughts on that.
We're all characters in a play. We're
Yeah.
all just characters in a much larger play, or you've got we're just so it's I really believe that. And another thing that I've read or I've heard was, or you kind of question yourself and you're like, some of our dreams are very vivid, so it's like, is this a dream? Or, when we go to sleep, is that real life or is this real life?
We're actors in a play. I always think, well, are you writing the play with your pen, or are you in somebody else's play? And I remember when I first realized that, when we were talking about having jobs, when I worked at the restaurant, and I realized, you know what, they needed a busboy, and I applied for the job and I started cleaning tables. And if I left, just someone else would come in because they just needed that in their reality. Because they dreamt up, we want a restaurant. It was a great restaurant, seafood restaurant. We want a restaurant. We need a staff. We need stuff like that. So that just kind of went into their things. Like, I didn't get up or have an affirmation list or a vision board about me being a busboy. Like, you know what I mean? Not at all. It just fit into their dream. So then I start thinking, okay, whose dream am I in? What dream am I dreaming, and who's in my, like, you know what I mean? So it's just like,
Yeah,
who's
yeah.
doing the thing. And there's, of course, united or common dreams, like, with you and your wife, you share a lot of like commonality between your worlds and your dreams. But I think that that's always something that I'm very aware of, or contemplative of. Did I start it? Did I create it? Or, you know am I just living in someone else's play?
Right. And I think we are living kind of in our own, but obviously where focus goes, energy flows, right? So the more we focus on things, right? And again, Abraham says, focus on something for 21 seconds, and you got to be focusing on those things that you want, and not things that you don't want, because that's the other key. There's a meditation that I actually use quite often, and it basically, it's just affirmations. I am strong. And it's somebody that's going through all these affirmations, and it's unbelievable. It really helps me, and really, like, that calming the mind. You just, calm the mind of thought, right?
Yeah, there's just so many it's so hard when you say like meditation, because there's so many ways to meditate. There's so many different ways. So I do like guided meditations at times. I do other focus, I do hypnosis meditations, and then I do like super deep meditation. I meditate every single day, at least once or twice per day. But really like strong meditations where I, completely disassociate with my space, time, and self. I only do that, like, maybe once a week or so, that I go into that level of deep meditation. And that's something completely different. So I think it's very interesting, and meditation in any form is good, but I think there's so much on it. There's too much for, I don't want to talk so deep about that in this thing, but I will take it offline. But you know what, Jeremy, what I want to do, because this could be an infinite amazing conversation with you, and I know it's running, I don't want to take too much of your time. If you had any last thoughts that you want to share with people, especially that you're one of the very few individuals that has spiritual, mental, physical wellness, like all put together. Most people have, maybe if they're lucky, one of them or two of them. So like, how could you kind of explain to the listener, like, how to have that balance of all three?
Big thing for me is to get the day started off right. Start off by, exercising, start off by listening to something positive, so that, positive, something that's going to get you through the day. Because once you start the day positive, then chances are you're going to end the day positive. If you start the day in a negative mood, and you're worrying about what happened yesterday, that's a big part of it, because then you're starting to bring yesterday into today, and that's where, so that for me is a big part of it. Another big part of it is obviously the affirmations. Catch your thoughts, catch those negative thoughts, and as soon as that negative thought comes in, you need to kind of just, a lot of times, a thing that a lot of people actually do is they put pictures on their, special pictures on their phone. You know what I mean? So you have a couple of negative thoughts, and unfortunately, right, we know that negative thoughts attract more negative thoughts. You know what I mean? And then you go into a very downward spiral, right? So, start, if you're having a bad day, or, just take 5 minutes, look through your pictures of your kids, so, to get yourself back in a, a positive mind frame. And, another good thing, as we've mentioned, is the gratitude. The gratitude's humongous, so, when I start to complain about anything, I literally, I almost slap myself, because, I have nothing honestly to complain about. And I know that, myself and, yourself, we're in that 90th percentile of the world on how blessed we truly are. We live in Canada. It's probably, in the top 5 countries in the world to live in. We have our healthcare, which is massive, and, I think those are the key things that you got to focus on. I really do. And if you focus on, what you're grateful for, then God will send you more things to be grateful for.
Awesome, Jeremy. Listen, man, thank you so much. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate your time and sharing your wisdom with all of us. So, on that, I'll wish you a successful and peaceful mind, and
Thank you.
have a wonderful evening, man.
All right. Thanks a lot, eh?
Okay.
Okay.
Ciao, Jeremy.